So you used your knife for whatever it is you were using it, and what do you do afterwards? How do you properly maintain your knife? A stainless steel knife such as this one, or even some of the non-stainless steel knives but are stain resistant knives that are commonly used these days for survival knives and general purposes knives. A knife such as this one, if it's wet, have it wet with water, all you do is dry it up. Make sure it's completely dry, and that's basically it. If you've been using it to cut food or other organic liquids have been in contact with the blade, you want to wash it with soap and water. Wash it thoroughly with soap and water, dry it up, make sure there's no water left, and that's it. I've been using this knife a lot. This knife, it's pretty old, and those of you that know cold steel know this is an old model, so I'm not saying something that isn't true. And this knife has been just as shiny and nice as you see it now, just keeping it that way. Maybe a small drop of 3-in-1 oil every once in a while in the pivot point, but that's it. No oil on the blade whatsoever. At least that's the way I've been keeping it. This knife has been used to cut food, has gotten wet, has cut vegetation, and even carved wood with it, and all the typical things you do with knives. The knife is still as fine as the first day I got it. Just doing that. On some blades that have a higher content of carbon and get stained, in those cases you will want to do the same thing, wash it with soap and water, but then put a little drop or two of oil on the blade and use a piece of paper or cloth and spray it all over the blade so as to leave a layer of protection. If you're going to be using that knife for food, of course make sure you're not using anything that's toxic. But that's basically it. Those are the cares you should have for such a knife. The thing is that a lot of us have so many knives that it's easy to have a few that you use often and many that are left in storage and not use at all for longer periods of time. In those cases you may want to you may want to put a little drop of oil, spread it, and then wrap the blade with plastic. Keeping the knife in a plastic bag will keep it away from humidity, and therefore it's not going to be rusty when you go looking for it. A high carbon content blade such as this one, it's gonna stain very fast, and it's gonna get rusty pretty fast if you don't keep it stored as you should. So with high carbon content blades, make sure you do leave a little layer of oil, and that you wrap it with plastic if you're not gonna be using it for a long time. Also, for knives that are being used for barbecues, this is something that I use for asados, for barbecues here, and it's used often for cutting meat. What we do is just wipe whatever oil it's left from the blade, and since the meat is already pretty greasy, just wiping it and leaving that layer of fat, it won't avoid some spots like this one, some stains like the ones you see here. You'll still have those stains because the fatty acids will do that to a knife, but it's not gonna get all rusty. Okay, so that's what I'm looking for when I do that with such a knife. I'm not that picky about the way it looks. As you see, it still has a mirror finish, and that mirror finish is it's actually protecting the knife. The more of a mirror finish it has, the better the finish, the less likely it is to start getting pitted all over. Just a couple of stains like the ones you see here, and that's just cosmetically speaking. It's not something that's going to be affecting its functionality at all. You do want to avoid ending up with something like this, that it has been pitted all over. You see some heavy pitting here. But yet again, this knife, for example, this is a high carbon steel blade, and the thing that has prevented this knife from completely turning into a lump of rust is the way it's being cared for. That is, leaving the fat used for cutting meat afterwards. If you smell this knife, which of course you cannot, but you could take my word for it, it smells like meat, because it has been used that way. It has been used a lot for cutting meat, then just wiping off the excess, wiping off the fat left, and leaving it like that. And of course it's very old. Finally, I wanted to explain with something else. For example, for a small little blade like this one, which is the one I have in my keychain, and if you have small Victorinox knives that you use every now and then, with this type of nail foam board, you can easily touch up the edge a bit, just like we did before. And doing this a few times after using it, it's gonna leave it razor sharp for the next time you want to use it. Still has some glue, don't remember, but I probably used it to open some package of some sort, and the glue of the tape got caught. But since it's properly kept for, it just wipes out easily. Doing this a few times leaves it again razor sharp for any other uses you may have for it later. So that's basically it, guys. This is just a first introduction to some general concepts about knives. I specifically wanted to explain the basics of how you should handle the knives so as to not make a fool of yourself and not upset anyone that is doing this for a living, that makes knives for a living. How to handle yourself in gun shows and knife shows with people that know their way around knives, and a few basic ideas of what geometry means when it comes to knives, and how to sharpen a knife, which I think it's important to know. If you have half a dozen blades and you're not able to even sharpen one of them, they are of limited use for you. So that's gonna be it for now, guys. Take care and see you on our next video.